Right. Colleagues, this is quite an honor, and I want to thank NSTF for inviting us to speak at this occasion. I have to say maybe I need to start off here. Our presentation here, which actually we have done in collaboration with my colleague over there, Maroma Masamula, who we fight a great deal about some aspects we're going to speak about here. So we've decided, on a truce up until we're done with the presentation today. But trust you me, once I turn my back, then you're going to know what you think. I just thought I should just clear the air right there. And something else I have to tell you is I brought my CV along, because some of the things I'm going to say here may actually, upon arrival, find I have a dismissal letter, because we're going to say some of the things that actually what is, what should, and what is not, and then try to sugarcoat it. Now, unfortunately, with the recordings and everything, the minister and the DG doesn't even need to say anything. They just play one clip and then they just point the finger, and then I have to see my way out. So, for the sake of my kid, I brought my CV along. And just as a way of preparing myself for this presentation, I have to say this is more of a vindication for me, because I at times make very bold statements. I don't know what I think I have as a backup, but whenever I want to jut my chin out and look brave, which is what we bullies do, I'll just tell people, you either listen to what I'm saying because I have my weight. I can use my weight literally, and that's when I do, when I'm with particularly small people like you. So you either listen to what I'm saying because you have a bully to deal with, or I will just use perhaps my ability at times to just plead and play innocent and then take it from there. So, the statement I made recently in speaking to some of the colleagues in maths and science was, we have, I think, as a body like ours, the unit that we are in here, we have sold a story devoid of the truth all along. Because all I remember in my being a student in the science stream, and I won't tell you how I fared in that, was that people who were thought to be good in mathematics were those people, and science, were those people who were said to be quieter, they don't speak much. So it sort of became sort of a general rule that, in maths, we don't speak much. We just do all of those squiggles. And then just recently, I had this aha moment, and I felt I could stand boldly and face colleagues like you and say, that's a fallacy. Because what you do is you write squiggles, all of those funny formulae, but you speak so much in getting those formulae through. If you think, I wouldn't even chance telling you what the formula for force is, I'll leave that to you, and Maroma will give you the rest if you want any reference. But you think about any formula, you just write squiggles like E squared equals something or the other, superscript something, and full stop. But for you to get to what that means, there's a hell lot of language that's involved in that. Now, unfortunately, that's a message that's not been going through. Because all along, you folks who are there, who are happening in the sciences, who surprisingly happen to be very good speakers whenever they get a chance. You have this tendency to standing in front and then you're surprised, what's the problem with them? Why is it that they don't understand it? And then we don't realize that the one problem could be, because we have these concepts that unfortunately in your subjects have everything but everything, as in the languages. There's so much of Italian and of everything else. I mean, in life sciences, you use all of these strange words. Is it arachnophobia or it is arachnophobia? Learners get confused with all of those things, but we don't unfortunately put it through to the learners as this is where you need to start. You need to first conceptualize, and conceptualizing actually means every subject, whether you science, STEM, or general subject, there's a language in the subject, and then there's a science. And the one thing that we also need to emphasize is you need the language so that you can decode the science. That's our point of departure. Now, the question is whether this point of departure is captured well, is well protected by our policies, our legal framework, and such. And that's where, as I said it, we may step on our toes there. But let's see what we can do. We're going to speak briefly. Don't you worry about the length of the bullets here. Some we will just refer to. It's only that I had to scare the words out of you. Just make you feel, oh hell no, he's going to get onto us. Legislative framework, we're going to refer to all of those legislations that have something to do with languages, that puts our languages in perspective, the Constitution, NAPER, SASA, LIP, and then we have our National Curriculum Statement, and then we'll speak about language issues and what could be the causes thereof, and then speak to you, language and STEM. I'm so comfortable all of a sudden because I'm aware that I have colleagues in here. The languages colleagues with interest in science. So, you can't pull me down. I'm way too heavy anyway, you can't even chance that. So with my colleagues here, I'm sure we will be able to sort of speak of this together. And then we're going to just briefly share with you what the response was, from the DBE side, to all of these probably problems and challenges that we shall have cited. And then what, according to us, would be pointers of success. And then before you know it and you start rating me, I'll be out of here with the conclusion. Right, the legislative framework, we want to indicate, colleagues, that languages are well protected. And when I say languages, I don't just mean English and Afrikaans, I mean languages, all their languages, right? We have a South African constitution, that speaks to the Bill of Rights, and the Bill of Rights protects all the languages. We have NEPA, which embodies the language and education policy, or actually on which the language and policy is built. And then we have the South African Schools Act, which speaks to norms and standards regarding language policy. We will, get to a bit of that, a bit of a breakdown of this, as you will see. Now, in Section 6 of the South African Constitution, language is one of those 6 founding provisions of the Constitution. So it tells you that even when writing the Constitution, those wonderful countrymen of ours noted the importance of language, and then realized that has to be grounded even in the Constitution. In other words, you don't speak Constitution, how do you start reading a Constitution anyway, if you don't have the language? Now, the thing is, with us and our multiple languages, the few of which I used to greet you, we needed to ground that. I'll just pause at that. All our official languages, and then we have a list of all of those that will be on the next slide. And then, as we indicated, the Bill of Rights, gives everybody a right to learn, right? And everybody a right to learn in their language. We will talk to that a bit later. And then there's section 29, which also mentions, I think this is also related to the Bill of Rights, everyone has a right to receive education in the official language or language of their choice. But I think you do realize that we deliberately bolded where reasonably practicable. And you realize that we consistently actually bolded that section, because this is exactly what cuts across. And that's where my dismissal starts. These are the languages. I won't waste the time reading through all of them. But the most important thing is, according to the Constitution, according to section 6.1, all these languages are official and they're on equal footing. Which I know we don't agree. Are they equal and equitable? That's another story. Where's my CD? Who do I hand it to? I think I've already started. Right, and then the NEPA as well, Clause 4 provides for the right of every student to be instructed in the language of his or her choice, where this is reasonably practicable. Also, section 6.2, the governing board of a school may determine the language policy of the school, and that's another problem area we have right there. Okay, that we will just briefly talk about later. And then there's a LEAP, which seeks to promote multilingualism and equitable development of the languages, all the South African languages, including sign language. Now, how far we have gone in our development of all languages and putting them at the same level, that's another story. And that perhaps is something that we'll find discussion in the sessions or in the program, in the sessions that we'll have later, the breakaway sessions we'll have later. And then we have the National Curriculum Statement, the policy statement, basically on curriculum, and that makes for provision of equal use of all 11 official languages in the schooling system. Do we have that? I'm not going to respond to that up until somebody accepts my CV. Now, language standardization policy. I have to say, in 2001, based on perhaps issues of these hidden messages that I'm conveying, of the languages being there but not being on equal footing. In 2001, under the leadership of then Professor Kada Asmal, this language standardization policy was developed. Now, the purpose hereof was to put all the languages on equal footing. Okay? This was to establish uniformity in the teaching assessment of all 11 official languages. Now, you will see if you pull any a national curriculum statement for any language at home language level, the teaching, the approach, the levels, the requirements are the same. If you look at any examination question paper for home language, the requirements are the same. For first additional language, the requirements are the same. But we have a bit of a crisis with the first additional language, particularly, my dear colleague, Linda, English first additional. Now, English first additional, I know I'm jumping the gun now, we'll come to that later, and I'm aware that it comes later as well in the program. English first additional language is clubbed together with all the other languages at first additional level because of this standardization document. Now, this is an occasion in which, when I try to sound smart, I say these are unintended consequences. Now, in that, the intention was good, to put all the languages on equal footing, but then we got to fail ourselves. English first additional language is the Lord. It's the language of learning and teaching, right? But if you put that alongside all the other first additional languages, with the purposes for which they're offered being different, then we lost the battle right there. You see, English first additional language, perhaps with Afrikaans first additional as well. Those are logged. Those are languages of learning and teaching. And the rest of the first additional languages are there, they offered as a subject. Now, we can't put the two together. But you see, we can't go back. I tried recently, and I also told you I always try to sound fancy when I can. I said to the DJ, listen, can we create an independent dispensation for English first additional language, where we elevate the requirements for English first additional language slightly, so that it can actually speak to the curriculum and the rest of learning? Well, unfortunately, our doing that would be speaking against the language standardization. Unintended consequences are affected.